lecturer in Media Communications at Regent's College London in England. This video is basically about how you're meant to use critical sources if your tutor or your lecturer has asked you to go off and write an essay. This is what you watch if you really cannot be asked to read a book on it, okay? Right, first off, what is secondary, aka critical material? Traditionally, it's stuff like books and journals, the things you'd find in the big room your tutors probably told you to go to occasionally, aka a library. More recently, it has become for a lot of students the internet. This gets tricky because with the internet, because anybody can update it from a professor right through to a spotty 15-year-old kid in the outback who has absolutely no knowledge of their subject at all necessarily, you've got to be very careful what you use. Wikipedia is okay as long as you use it as a starting point only. Stick that in an essay with a Wikipedia reference and your tutor is likely to start frothing at you and saying you can't possibly use this stuff. Same goes with a lot of things like blogs. If you're going to use internet sources, make sure they're reputable. That means potentially something from an educational institution. Please do not, whatever you do, just use random blogs or technology websites. Just because it's up there doesn't mean it's reputable and you'll be filling your essay with absolute crap. Okay? So what I would suggest is that you stick mainly to books and academic journals. This is things published by academic institutions, and maybe, if you want, one so-called fluff reference. In other words, something from Wikipedia. No more than that, really. Why bother? Very simply, you know what it's like when you get to the kind of period in term when your essays are due in, you've listened to so much stuff in lectures, your head's spinning, and you don't want to know anymore. The reason why you bother partly is you cheat. If you look at critical sources, for example, you go off and read about the film or the business model or whatever the hell it is you're looking at in your essay, you go off and read up what somebody else has said about it, it can start to help you think. It's as simple as that. Using these things are a way of helping us to develop our own ideas. In theory, they should be used as something to actually help you develop, but if you have got complete brain drain at the end of term, sod it. Use them to literally get your brain started in the first place. When we do any form of academia, we want to develop our own thoughts. If I'm reading an essay that a student's written, what I want to know is that they've understood the material and also that, quite frankly, they've thought about it themselves. It's always a really good way to get A's off people if you surprise them, if you show them that, quite frankly, you've got smarts as well as looks. Okay, how much should I use? Tricky question. Some tutors will say use 3 texts. If they say that, use 3 texts. That does not include the thing you're writing on. That is not a critical source, that is the basic material. Do not use that as part of your 3. What you could say though is how much do you need to use? If you've got something you're interested in, or even something you're not, to be honest, you've got to use as much as it takes to get your argument across. That does not mean padding it out. It means in terms of thinking, well, I quite like what this person said about something, but there's 2 other people I like as well. Use them all. If you want to, use 5 different sources. The trick is to use whatever it is that helps you to think. Don't just fill the bibliography with 50 books, all of which are absolute crap and you didn't bother to even look at. I did that for my BA, and guess what it got me? Nothing. Seriously. It took a long time for me to learn how to research properly for my PhD. Use what you need, but bear in mind if something says, if you're doing something at BA level, and somebody asks you, as I've just asked my students, to do me something with 3 critical resources, at least 3 critical resources, it does not mean 3. It means if you find 5 good books on the subject, use 5. If you find 6, use 6. You're going to impress your tutor and earn more marks if it shows via bibliography and what you've done in your essay that you've actually bothered to do it. If you have 3 sources that are just random things nicked off Wikipedia, then don't expect to know because you're probably not going to get it. Okay, so use as many as it takes to develop your ideas. If the things you've got aren't good enough, then hey, go to town or go on the internet onto a proper academic site and find something else. Okay, because you can't look at porn all the time. What should I use? One thing I feel very sorry for with a lot of students these days is that we're so busy thinking, right, we've got to teach this, we've got to teach that, we've got to fill people's heads up with knowledge, that we forget the basics of how to research sometimes. Okay, take my class. At the moment I'm doing film studies with them, which is incredibly good fun. I love it. And I've given them some documentaries to look over. And one of these documentaries is a thing called Paris is Burning. Now, who knows Madonna? Do you know Madonna? Vogue? Yes? I know that was crap, but hey, I'm not a dancer. You know Vogue? Well, Madonna essentially took the idea of voguing from Harlem 2 or 3 decades ago. She took it off a load of drag queens who had what they call balls down there. These were situations where they would come together as a community and they'd vogue, or they'd just walk, kind of do fashion praise for each other. That's where voguing came from. Seriously, half the guys in the Vogue video are from that documentary, people like William Jim, God rest his soul. Now, with this documentary, what I'm asking my students to do is to say what documentary mode it's in, whether it's ethical, whether it's non-ethical. Now, the way that you have to do this kind of thing is firstly begin to look at the idea of ethics in documentary. Now, in terms of what should you use for critical resources, you're probably not going to find a book that says in your local library, this is a book of essays on Paris is Burning. It's not going to happen. You could, if you have a very good library, go and find books with essays in. For example, Judith Butler's work has a couple of essays on the actual documentary. But chances are that unless you know it's there, you're not going to know about it. What you do instead is you go to the library, or you go online if you want. The library's better because it's more finely tuned. And what you do is you think, okay, what am I studying? It's film, it's a documentary, it's about drag queens, it has a lot of people from different racial backgrounds in it, it has a lot of poor people in it. Instantly there we've got some keywords: race, poor, documentary, film. Run them into your search engines, as simple as that. See what comes up. I'm guessing that in terms of film you'll probably get quite a lot. Go to wherever the sites are it's telling you to go to, or go to whichever class marks it is, and get the book. You should by end of it come out with a stack about yay high. Because I'm not saying that you've got to read them all, but you need to start to filter them down. Use whatever you find most appropriate. Start with the books that have got entire chapters on whatever it is you're studying. So if you have a book on film that has a chapter on documentary, yeah, you're going to need that. If you have something that has a reference to Madonna in it, you may need that, you may not. Thinking about the Madonna connection with Vogue. You may need that, you may not. How should you use it? Now this one I've made earlier. This is a comment out of an essay that was within a book. This was a comment written by an academic called Peggy Whelan. And she says, "The balls are serious rehearsals for a much tougher walk down the mean streets of New York City. The balls are opportunities to use theatre to imitate the theatricality of everyday life, a life which includes showgirls, bandy boys, street guys, and business executives." How the bloody hell are we going to get that to apply to Paris is Burning? Very simple. Think in terms of a documentary. A documentary is meant to be what? Real? Slice of life showing you how people actually are? This is talking directly about the idea of a slice of life. Reality versus theatre, theatricality, make-believe, making something up, fakery. Okay? So instantly here, we've got the idea of, okay, this is meant to be a documentary, but how much of the staging impacts on how people are being presented within it? Is it reenacted? What has been included in that documentary? What scenes don't they show us? What ends up on the cutting room floor? Have they showed us things with just the big costumes in because it looks pretty, it looks good, it looks fun, it attracts people like Madonna's attention? Or are they showing it to us because that is what is there? How are they getting over the idea of the real, contrasted against this theatricality, this sin whereby the people who are at the balls will go along to this place and pretend to be somebody completely different? These guys are poor. They are not business executives. It is a sham. They are pretending to be business executives. They want to believe they can be understood or seen as real, that they can be mistaken or taken for business executives when they're so poor they half of them can't even afford to eat. So what you do is you use this as a jumping off point. What you do is you say, well, okay, how much of it is theatrical? Can we see the parts of the documentary where maybe you can hear the director talking off camera, asking particular questions to make the narrative work in a certain way? No different to the way you might say to your friend, if you're talking about going to the cinema later on, I really can't be bothered, should we instead go to have a Nando's? The idea of you're presenting a different option because you want your friend to follow that completely different option. So once we have this idea of how to use critical resources, you can then build it back into your essay. If your essay is the documentary an appropriate vision of what real life is like? In the case of Paris is Burning, I think you could say yes. Because even though it is very theatrical and it shows people pretending to be people other than who they are, or a different vision of who they are, if you will, it's still showing how they live their lives. Further things such as editorial control over how people are represented. For example, in Paris is Burning, which you can actually find on YouTube, you will find a few frames of the character Venus Extravaganza being depicted against a backlog of kind of trash just behind. She's sitting in low McDonald's wrappers and so forth. You could argue that although yes, she is standing there, has she been asked to stand there? The sheer fact of showing her standing there suggests, partially I think, that she's trashy from the director's perspective. They didn't have to shoot her there. They could have said, oh, hang on a minute, honey, you know, you're standing in a load of crap, come out of the way, now put you against a nice guy to make you look pretty, to make you look good, because you've helped us out. Doesn't do that, she's shown against the trash. Now, final point. How do you actually include it? One thing that I hear a lot from students is, oh God, we've got to do a bibliography. Don't worry about that, it's easy. If you're using a comment from a critic, for example, Oughton, you say, literally, you put the name up there as so-and-so comments. Then you have your actual comment. If it's longer than 40 words, put it in a little paragraph on its own, indented. Then straight after the indent, down here, you put a bracket, the year the thing was published, and the page number. The reason for all this is very simple, so that if you come up with something absolutely bloody excellent, I want to make sure that it's actually what you said, not what you've stolen from somebody else, and give you the credit for it. Yay, hey for an A. And so this tells me who did it, what year it was written, and down here the page number. Now, what you'll also find is that you will need a bibliography. And here's one I made earlier. Your bibliography should be in alphabetical order. And this is what you put in it. For the Harvard system, you put in the critic's name, the year the thing was published. followed by a full stop, then in inverted commas, the name of the article. Okay, that's a particular article for Peggy Whelan. It's crisscrossing cultures. Then you put the word in a colon. You put the editor of the book it's published in, and then the name of the book it's published in. For example, Crossing the Stage, Controversies on Cross-Dressing. Then you put where it was published, the publishing house, in this case Routledge, and the page numbers of the essay, so that in theory I can then go back and find the book. That's what you've got to do. So remember, all this stuff comes at the end in your bibliography. The other thing, in text, you only put what the person said, the name, the year it was published, and the page. Please don't put bibliography references in the text. That's not how you do it, and it will drive your tutor absolutely nuts. Okay, to wrap up, we've talked about what secondary material is, why bother to use it, because it makes life easier for you, it's as simple as that, and it's more likely to get you an A because it shows as a tutor you've actually done what you meant to have done. How much you use depends very much on you, but you know if you're doing a bad job, don't bother. You're wise guys, seriously, use your smarts. What should you use? We've talked about that in terms of the appropriate kinds of material for your subject, and we've talked about how you should use it, how to apply those comments. Just remember, writing an essay is no different to having an argument with your friend about which team is the best in the league, or which kind of designer label looks better on particular kinds of figures. All an essay is putting forward a perspective. Just think of it like that. Every time your friend says to you, but what about this? What about this particular figure that looks particularly good in this kind of label because of this, or because they use a certain cut, or because a certain sportsman uses a certain parts, what you can then do is say, yeah, but, and that's what you do in critics. Final thing, just to make it look really good. If you find a critic who agrees with you, or who you agree with, don't say so-and-so, the critic suggests that. Turn it around, make it sound like you're the one who kind of thought of the idea but without actually saying it. Instead, say, so-and-so is correct in saying da-da-da-da, whatever it may be, because it makes you look smarter. Similarly, if you disagree, say so, go for the jugular. The vast majority of academia is no different to playground bullying. All it is us using each other's ideas to make ourselves look good. Good luck with your essays.